All right. We are back with another episode of Living a Bold Life. Welcome, everyone. And the guest that we are featuring on this week's episode is Cheale Villa. So we are here to talk about Cheale's bold life. Welcome, Cheale.
Hi, thank
How are you
you.
doing today, sister?
Oh, very bold.
It. All right, and y'all, before we get going with our interview, I'm just going to read a short little snippet about Cheale. I don't know what platform you're watching this on. You may have already read it, you may not have, but we'll just go ahead and start out so you have some idea of who we're with today, who we're spending this time with. So for Cheale Villa, the CEO and visionary rabbit behind Visual Caffeine, authenticity is non-negotiable. One of my favorite words. For 25 years, Cheale has stayed true to her authentic self and worked exclusively through her branding agency to help clients magnify and broadcast their message. Since Visual Caffeine's creation, it has grown into a bi-coastal branding powerhouse, woo, based in Seattle, Washington, and Charlotte, North Carolina. With a portfolio of business clients of all sizes, industries, and niches. Cheale's ability to listen and bring ideas to life, her warm spirit, and dedication to volunteerism are often noted as her most defining traits. Currently, Visual Caffeine continues to bring companies and communities' goals to fruition, not only by building messages and magnifying voices, but by building and magnifying relationships. And many of you watching this have probably seen a lot of the new stuff I'm doing in my business. And this amazing human with us today is integral to it. She's been helping me bring my ideas to life, capturing them in a way that's fun for me, that's authentic for me. So those of you who have been like, oh, I really like that, and that's all her right here. That's all Cheale.
Thank you.
Yes, so good to be with you.
Good to be with you always.
So you know how we roll here. The watchers know how we roll here. We take the same handful of questions for each interview and ask the same ones. And the reason behind this is I'm trying to kind of paint a parallel that all the humans out there that are really committed to being bold and taking leaps, even if they're afraid, there's a lot of similarities in what these people are doing and how they're living. And because everyone's their own unique person, there's also different nuances, which really show you that. So, it kind of shows you the parallels, how we're all the same, but how different. And it's really meant to inspire, to empower, and let people share part of what went into some of these challenging things. Because so often we just see the highlight reel, and that's for a lot of us a comparison game that just takes us out. So much like Cheale's bio, we're here to be authentic and we're here to be real.
Yep. I'm gonna be talking about some things that I don't normally talk about, but I figure it probably be the things that might be helpful to others.
Yeah, and you're not the first. A lot of people have ended up sharing things like, wow, I wasn't planning on mentioning this. I haven't said this anywhere else. So once again, listeners, that's another gift we get. We're getting people that in a lot of cases, we're getting to hear this here first. And what a gift. What a gift to get that. So as always, Cheale, just share what feels organic to you in the moment, because we know that out of this amazing life you're living and have lived, we're just getting brought into a snippet of an expansive journey. And so we're kind of coming in on that snippet. So share whatever feels good to you. I know sometimes if we're still processing some stuff, we might want to not share that because we don't know how. So as always, just share what feels good, and anything else, just trust another time.
Yeah, works for me.
All right. All right. So we're going to get started with the questions. So once again, everyone, we are coming in on a snippet of Cheale's journey. And I know Cheale, and she's up to a lot of bold stuff. And I think my favorite thing about this is I never know what the guests are going to share. So I have no idea. This is news to me too. Sometimes I kind of have an idea and then I'm hit out of left field. So Cheale, in this moment, out of all the bold things that you have done in your time, what feels like the one that you feel called to share in this moment with everybody listening?
It would be leaving my first marriage. I was a new mom, a very new mom. We had just adopted our daughter, and she was 1 year old. And what she did was she gave me a backbone to realize the mentally and emotionally abusive situation I was living in, and I did not want that for her. And so I have, unfortunately, I have a puppy that is moving my tripod. Okay.
It wouldn't be a Zoom video if there wasn't an animal, some way, shape, or form in this video.
Exactly. And I mean, I was in a place where I was really questioning what moving forward. And it's amazing how when we have children, how it can make us realize a lot of things that we're accepting for ourselves that we wouldn't accept for them. And I wasn't going to accept that for her. And so I always say my daughter has saved my life in many ways. And so with that said, he had gotten a job out of state, and that was my moment to say, I'm not leaving my safe zone, and that this needs to end. And it allowed me to stay in the state where my family was and such, and allowed me to make that transition, I think, a lot easier than it would have been if I tried to do it and he wasn't trying to move to a job in another state. And so, yeah, that put me in a position of being a single mom, because he was not interested in being a father. It was something he just did for me. And thankfully, God led us a few years later to who her real dad is. So, and he ended up adopting her. So it was all God sent. I always look to my faith to pull me through anything. And that was a moment of a lot of needing to have faith that this is where I was going. And this was the right decisions I was making.
First of all, let me acknowledge your courage.
Thank you.
Because to leave for many can be very hard. It can take often a very long time. And I love what you share about how you modeled it for your daughter, because we do know ultimately that it's not what we tell the kiddos, right? It's what they watch. So we can tell them time and time again, don't take that, be loved, stand for yourself. But if we're not modeling it, it often doesn't work. But I know for many, it can actually be very hard to leave and then go and be a single parent. So it can kind of, for some, be kind of like a catch-22.
Yeah. And I knew that it wasn't going to be like this joint kind of situation where I was going to have, her. It was like, no, I knew moving that it was like 100% going to be me. And, but to me, that's like nothing compared to choosing to stay. Like that was such a much harder choice than for her long-term, well-being. And I know I had peace from the beginning. And I did advise because of my faith. I did advise with a minister, and I felt like I needed to get his, like, almost like his permission. So that was God's way of giving me peace on the whole thing too. And I knew.
And I love that you shared that too, right? Because like what I really want the listeners to hear for that is sometimes to be able to feel empowered in our decision and stand in it, we do sometimes need to talk to somebody objective, to talk to somebody outside of us, because we do very often have parts that do require some sort of permission.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that you did that for yourself, because I imagine it created more empowerment.
Yeah, absolutely. And it, because I'm a very faith-driven person, that I mean, I live my life by those signals that I feel in my intuition, that, you know, and I feel in different ways God delivers me those directions.
Yeah.
And I just continue to look for that and receive, stay open to receive.
I love that. And
So,
you may repeat a little bit right now, and don't worry if you do. Like, the questions to these were intended to be really organic, so they kind of flow.
oh yeah.
So they kind of flow one into another. And you may have already spoke to this a little bit, but for most of us, when we go to kind of make that move, there often tends to be a build up to it. And then all of a sudden it's like, there's like the straw that breaks the camel's back. And you kind of already mentioned it, but for you, if we just kind of check back in, when push came to shove, was there something where you were like, now's the time, let's make the move? And I know you kind of mentioned a job opportunity, a move. So would you say that ended up being the thing that was the push come to shove for you?
Yeah, I would say that there was two things.
Okay.
That I would say is the ultimate. I would say I'll call it the looking glass moment. Mm-hmm. The looking glass moment was me handing her over to him and him telling me that, okay, he'll hold her for 10 minutes. And he literally sat there looking at his watch. So it was just very symbolic of the type of person he is, and also symbolic of how much it wasn't just going to be me being in that type of situation or treatment, you know, that she wasn't going to be an exception to. So it was just like this confirmation. And that alone may not sound like a big deal to some people, but it was a very small picture into something much greater. I'm like, no. And then I felt like the move was basically God giving me that, because I believe that when doors are closing, God opens another door. And I felt like that was the door that was being opened. And I'm having a cat issue.
I was just thinking, is that David Rose, the puppy, or is that a kitty?
No, it's a cat. She's like on my desk trying to get attention, and she's not realizing this is not the time. Okay.
There wasn't an animal coming and doing something. So, Cheale, I like how you shared the two moments and kind of defined them, because there was one, which was the move, which really was the opportunity. That kind of that you see, like, okay, now's the time, it's aligned. But then I like how you described it as a looking glass moment, because again, it sounds like one of those moments where, you know, if it's maybe taken by itself, it doesn't really mean anything. But if you kind of take it in context and look at, no, this is just an example of how it always goes and how it's going. That says a lot, right? Like when you've gotten this child, and then the other partner is literally like, is it time to give the child back? Is it time to give the child back? What's really going to change, right? If anything, that's just going to get worse.
Yeah, and a lot of people think that situations will change because they have a child. If anything, they do get worse.
Yes.
Everything that's wrong is that much worse, you know?
Nothing
Yeah.
changes if nothing changes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You've just added someone else to be affected by the situation.
Yeah. So I love that you've had two moments, because one, it was a moment where you really noticed something, and instead of checking out, you stayed with it and you were like, this is something to pay attention to. And then there was that timing where you were like, now's the time to do it. It's aligned.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that. And so you shared something a little bit earlier on your journey than I've known you. And so,
Yes.
as you and I both know, because I've known you to do so many bold things since I've known you, and that's a good bit after that. And so, again, answer this next question however it makes sense for you. But for most of us who are doing bold things, making bold moves, we know that when we tend to start doing it, it gets easier and easier and easier, because that's just how this stuff goes. We practice, right? And so for many of us, we find there's a formula per se. You know, some people find there are certain things they need to really commit to be able to keep showing up, to keep doing it. This is the answer where a lot of people have had similarities, but there's also been a lot of differences here. And so for you, Shell, if there's a formula or if there's a set of things, is there anything that you have found that non-negotiable? These things have to be here to keep showing up, to keep being courageous, to keep leaping when you don't know what's going to happen, to keep trusting. What would those things be for you?
It would be completely embedded in my faith.
I
And
knew that was
knowing
the
that.
first one you were going to say.
Yes, because no matter what decision I've made, if I feel that God is aligned with it, that I know that he's going to have my back. And not that he doesn't have my back if I make a stupid decision. He's there waiting to help me pick up the pieces, because we all make dumb decisions. We all, make mistakes. But that's what forgiveness is about. That is what, grace is for. That's what mercy is for. And so for me, I mean, even down to like two other major things that I did was moving to Charlotte from Detroit, and then moving to Seattle from Charlotte. Now, moving to Charlotte was a situation where I was a single mom still, and I was, I had met my husband now, but I met him, and we had, I had come to this place where it's like I just felt like I think it's time for me to move. And I feel that God put that on my spirit. And my then boyfriend said to me, if it is the right time, put the house for sale. If God agrees, he'll sell the house. And at the time we were dealing with the obviously the economic situation. And in Detroit, literally it was the time when GM was, declaring bankruptcy and such.
Yeah.
And of course, and I had experienced things, business wise and stuff too, because of the economic situation. So it wasn't like it was like this fruitful time to be like selling a house or whatever. And I'm like, I'm just giving this to God. And he couldn't have aligned it better. It was kind of a funny story. I put the house up for sale, but being a single mom, it was like my house was a terror mess. I mean, it was like, so that when somebody wanted to come see the house and they wanted to evaluate or whatever. And I kept telling the real estate agent, I'm like, my house is a mess. My house is a mess. I can't like have them come. And they had asked her 3 times to schedule this. And the third time she is like, they don't care if it's a mess. I will tell them to just look past it. And they literally gave me an offer that day within a few $1,000s of what I asked for. And this was 2 weeks I put it on the market. 2 weeks. And then Freddie happened to be, he happened to be coming to visit us in Michigan around that time. And so he ended up deciding he was like, okay, I'm coming. I'll just stay there, because the people were like, we have to be in 30 days because they were moving from an apartment. So thankfully, I had him coming to help, and I hired a mover, and I ended up having the mover just pack the stuff for me, because I'm like, there's just no way I can do this. Like, there's no way. I mean, I have been in that house for a long time. It was just a mess. So yeah, I mean, and it was just aligned perfectly, and it was one of those situations where like God had to be behind this. Like, there was just no other explanation, because to me, a lot of the moving parts were very miraculous.
Yeah, and so almost, you didn't say it quite like this, but almost like what I heard was faith. Um, and then it's almost like your own intuition, and then trusting in your intuition and trusting in the faith.
Yes, because actually I always say my intuition is my phone line to God. I feel like that intuition is my way of connecting to his calling. So anytime I've ignored my intuition, it's, led me down a path of like, okay, that was a tough lesson.
And what I have found, as someone who's also practicing a bold life, as someone who has been coaching, people for almost 7 years to do this, one thing I have found is, without faith, this stuff either A, does not work, or B, it's not fun at all, or C, it's really hard. Without faith, it's really, really hard to trust that which you can't see, to trust intuition, to make leaps. And so, it's interesting, because a lot of times when I start work with people, if they don't have faith, they have it by the end, because they've realized there's no way they're going to do any of it without it.
Yeah, exactly. Our humanness gets in the way.
And that, I think that's one that that's an answer that most anyone who I've interviewed so far has shared.
Yeah. And I would say, honestly, I feel like that's bare bones what any bold move has to do with, because our humanness lets fear get in the way. Our humanness lets overthinking, over analyzing getting in the way. And that, that really stops and hinders us. And those things create so many walls and so many barriers. And the biggest breaker of those barriers is that faith.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, I mean, it's just tough to be courageous and do things when you're scared if you don't have faith in anything outside of you or bigger. And so I love when the really important stuff gets reiterated by all the guests. Because, I think when we look around and we're like, what are all these people doing? And we see all the common things in common, we start to maybe say, okay, maybe there's something, maybe there's something to this. And we have to,
yes, absolutely.
So everyone can see the puppy, because no one's listening to us right now, because they're like, oh my God, puppy. Everyone, this is Steve Rose.
This is bugging me. I'm like, I gotta pick him up.
This is Steve Rose. This is what was currently going on below Cheale's desk.
Yes. And I will move him to his playpen.
Oh, he's so cute. Oh, I am quite sure that anyone watching this is very excited that they got a chance to see something so cute today.
Yeah, nothing like some 9-year-old freshness. 9-week-old freshness.
And for Cheale, for this next question, this is one where obviously we never know what the answer is. We are just kind of doing our best to hypothesize. So, for all of us, we bump up against these times in our life where we come up against a choice, and we can choose to do this, do that, do something over here, do something over there. And so for you, when you were up against that choice, you made the choice to go, to separate for your daughter. You took the looking glass moment, you took the move. And so if you imagine you didn't have your faith to propel you, you didn't have that deep desire to model something better for your daughter, if you ended up not making that move, where do you think life would have taken you? Where do you think you might have gone? Where do you think you might be?
I would still be in that marriage, and she would be a much different girl.
Mm.
But I've managed with Freddie to raise a strong, independent woman. And she's amazing and beyond proud of her. But it's those things that I've instilled in her, as well as the things that Freddie has instilled in her. And what is this is a hard thing to say, but one thing my ex-husband said was that even though he adopted her with me, he knows now that Freddie was meant to be her father.
Oh,
So he said that after his own coming to Jesus moment, and that was something that he had said to me. And it's I think God eventually instills peace in everybody, and has us learn the lessons we need to learn. I definitely saw that with him. And of course I had it myself. We all have it, but it was great to see that actually that transformation happen with him.
yeah.
And just realizing the place that I was in, the place that he was in, and just that everything happened for a reason. And
Yeah.
it does.
It kind of sounds almost like full circle moment.
Yeah. And that was years ago. That wasn't anything like recent, but that,
Right,
I mean,
right.
but that did occur.
Well,
Yeah. And that of course occurred when he released his rights.
well, what that makes me almost think of too is, very often in situations, some people might not ever decide to go, right? Some people are quite good at settling and they might never go. And, for him to come back and say, the person who is her father now was really the one who was meant to be all along. It's almost like if you never decided to go and your ex may have never decided to part ways, some people just don't make the choice. They'll just stick it out, even though it's not good. And so you made the choice. And again, this is the point in these interviews where I really want people to get, we're not trying to make this be about the fact that there's a right choice and a wrong choice, because there's really
Right.
not. There's just choices. And
Mhm.
they're going to lead you in different directions. Some of them are going to empower you and some of them are not. But you can hear
Right.
this one that, if Cheale had not made that choice to go, there's a very good chance she might still be there. And she might be, well, she would be raising a daughter who'd be a very different person. And you can hear now the daughter she's raising is strong, is independent. And so I think those are really the big things we want to look at when it's time to make a choice is what's the impact potentially if I stay? And what's the impact potentially if I go? And then we choose from there.
Yeah, and a lot of those things we can't obviously see in
Right.
the moment.
Right.
But there is I mean, some people think that I'm staying because of the children. you
Right.
know, because they want that security, you know, and we all have different forms of support systems. Like I thankfully have my parents who were amazing support system. You know, not everybody has that. And so there's no judgment on anybody's
Right.
choices, but there is uh, there is the empowerment of making the choice no matter what it is.
Right. Right. There's power in choosing.
There is power in choosing.
Yeah.
And if you've made that choice because you feel that that's going to be best for whatever reason, you know, then, you know, own the decision and feel empowered by it.
Yeah.
You know, no matter, because nobody can say to anybody else, I get your situation, I get the shoes you're in.
Right.
This is not, I would never, you know, I would never look at, you know, someone situation and say, oh, well, you should have done it this way, you
Right.
know, or nobody knows what truly a place somebody is in.
And I think
Um,
that's what one of the things I love about these series is, you know, very often the way our own mind is going to work, it's going to come up with all the what ifs that are disempowering and all the reasons it won't work. And people getting to share about their bold moves here gives people another place to look. What if it does go well? What if it is better on the other side? And so it kind of gives the brain somewhere else to think because, you know, for a lot of us, no one's ever taught us how to make powerful choices. And we're doing
right.
the best we can.
Right. And I mean, in anything in life, it's a, you know, a test, you know, we're tested constantly. And sometimes we think, and this is something, you know, I think is very important. Sometimes we think that the best decisions are the ones that are going to feel less challenging. But when we choose the things that are the hardest, the best lessons come out of it and the best growth comes out of it. And that is for anyone to individually choose for themselves. But I always feel that we need to find joy in that roughness, because those rough things, those rough paths that we kind of be on, you need to find joy in it because God is planting seeds there. He is having growth happen there. And you know, and we got to feel good about it. You know, we've just gone through a whole year of people having to deal with a lot of heartache, of challenges, and you know, and all of us are experiencing a world that we've never experienced before. Like, no, none of us have. Um, and we need to look at even those things. There's so much we can't control, but find joy in it because it's growing us somehow. It's changing us somehow in very amazing ways. And it's typically prepping us to be able to deal with other things down the road that are going to seem like a cakewalk. But since we went through this last year, it's like, whoa, that's easy to deal with now. Like perspective comes in and everything. So, you know, I just look at a path of things that were very hard to go through, but I'm so grateful for every moment. And I always say, I don't regret anything in life because it makes me who the person I am right now. And I love who I am right now. And I'm never going to regret who I am now.
I love that. And I agree. That's super important.
Yes. And that isn't saying we don't mess up. That doesn't saying, but if we're, you know, everything in our life we're supposed to be learning from. So if we're actively doing that, there's nothing to feel regret about.
And
We're
typically, if
growth.
everything's easy, it means we're just kind of living in the comfort zone. And again, nothing wrong with that, but the magic and all the epic things a lot of us say we want, they just don't come from in the comfort zone. And so we have to
Exactly.
find ways to get outside of it and challenge ourselves because it is where the growth comes.
Yeah. I mean, I think of it as kind of like when you know, when you drive
Yep.
and of course being in the Carolinas, you know how much fun it is to drive the mountains sometimes. Well, if you always drove on a suburban road that is always straight and flat, you always, your whole life you always drive on that suburban road and it's always safe, flat, straight, whatever. But if you know, there is going to be a moment when your car is all of a sudden going to have to go down this road of waving and curving and whatever, you're eventually going to have to hit that. The earlier you face going on that curvy, crazy road, it's just going to make the next crazy road that much easier.
Right.
But it's like, I think we all experience trauma. We all experience things in our lives, do different levels. And a lot of it has to do with the things that we chose to deal with in our lives already, or we had no choice to deal with in our lives. So all of those experiences just make us that much stronger, make us that much more durable. I just look at different experiences in my life, and I plucked out all of these things that came in sequence, which I feel God allowed. If I pulled all those out and I had to deal with this situation like last year, I probably wouldn't have survived, or I probably wouldn't, you just don't realize how much of a blessing that horrible crap was. So I hope my analogy made sense, but.
And for the final question, I love this one too, because by the time we get here, every guest has already shared a wealth of wisdom, knowledge, advice, but we get another chance.
Probably don't have a pug that's fallen asleep on them.
This is the best. He's out. He's a little head up, little head's phoning.
Yeah.
And
you have to put a hashtag
one,
pug life on your video.
this might be something you've already said, or it might be something brand new. So you pick if you kind of want to drive a point home again, or if you want to share something brand new. But if you were to leave the listeners with one piece of sage wisdom that feels authentic for you to share right now, what would that be? And again, could be something you've already shared, could be something brand new.
I would go up to a certain degree, but reiterating some of what I already said. Trust your gut, and that's trust your intuition. To me, it never steers you wrong, and you really need to trust that. And when we make those decisions based on that, our brain gets out of the way. I think our brain can a lot of times get too much in the way. Our intuition, to me, is our freedom of the brain. It's our freedom to get away from what logically, because being a creative and stuff, I obviously always want to go on a path of, of more embracing that side of things versus the analytical side. So I think it's easier maybe for me to trust my intuition or connect with it, but everybody has it. And I say, hold it as an amazing treasure that you've been given, amazing gift that you've been given in your life. Embrace it, get in touch with it. Get in touch with professionals that help you get further in touch with it. There's so many amazing people out there that can help you work even more with it, because I think it is one of the greatest maps, navigation systems we have been given.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, and I love that you also made the invitation to get support, because listeners, if any of you are like, I don't know how to trust my gut, that sounds great, but how? It's just really starting to learn how to start making choices more from here and here instead of here. We use this, we just have been programmed in our culture to use it for everything, and it's just not meant to be used for everything. And to Cheale's point, and you all know I'm a plethora of resources. There's many ways you can deepen your intuition. It could be a meditation practice, a yoga practice, a coach, a therapist, an energy worker, a spiritual guide. And, there's tons of ways. And ultimately, it just kind of depends on who you resonate with, how you want to do it. And as always, if anyone wants or needs to ask any questions about that, we're all out here. Feel free to reach out. You know how to get
absolutely
us. But you may certainly need to practice that, and that's okay. I practice that, and I'm hearing that you do too.
Oh yeah. And I have my whole life. It's a life practice.
Yes,
It's an
yes.
absolute life practice. And also as a second thing, you know, when we fixate a lot on things that have happened in the past, we fixate a lot on feeling victim of it or feeling hurt by it. This is another thing that would maybe require support for people, but releasing that and really giving yourself permission to see it as a blessing. I know that can be hard to even think of because we have all dealt with atrocious things in our lives, but they were blessings from the sense of survival, of growth that we may have happened because of it, of other people we were able to help because it happened to us. And it's I think it's really important to move forward versus staying in the back and staying back in the past, because those can also be hindrances of us being able to do bold things in our life, because those type of memories, those types of fixation on being victimized, um, that's fear holding us in a state that we are basically paralyzed in.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that. And so anyone listening, if you are present to the fact that the stuff behind you is getting in your way, that's always something to look at, as coach, when I work with someone from present to future, if there's anything back here that's getting in the way, we've always got to be moving that out, because we all need to heal. We've all had trauma. So if you notice the stuff behind you impacting your now and future, it's time to do some work on that.
And Jen's a great coach for that.
Thank you, Cheale.
She's my coach.
I'll take it. I'll own it. Cheale, David Rose, thank you for
he is so out. He was playing for most of our interview, and then
thank you for being here. Thank you for being authentic and vulnerable and sharing things that maybe you haven't shared a lot before. There's so much power for us to share our story, for people to hear our story. And anyone watching this video, whatever platform you're on, Cheale's bio will be in there. Ways you can get a hold of her will be there. So don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, if any of you are really enjoying what you're seeing with where I'm taking my business and brand, and you are in need of some support, this is the person behind everything you are seeing. So do not hesitate to reach out. She is a genius and super fun. Thank you so much for being so generous with us, Cheale.
Thank you.